The power of absence. You desperately need to hear this, because I truly believe most people never see that moment coming when it draws near. In that exact second you stopped running after them, they realized everything, but not with a sense of relief or indifference as you might think. No, they realized it with a sudden, terrifying clarity, so profound that their subconscious was shaken to its very roots. Because the truth is, when you stop pursuing someone, it is not just the universe around you that changes. That human being, for whom you were once burning like a moth, begins to fade silently and invisibly. And herein lies the most dangerous part. They suddenly feel an immense void inside them, a void they didn't even realize existed when it was being filled by your energy and presence. Now, this emptiness has turned into a bottomless abyss. They do not know how to sit quietly in the midst of that silence. They panic and begin frantically searching for anything, without even understanding why. Most people cannot see this. They do not understand that your absence is not merely a lack of your presence. Your absence is a massive mirror. It is the reflection of everything they lacked the courage to face throughout their entire lives. Deep, deep beneath the surface, they realize that the sense of control and that endless authority they used to exercise over you has slipped through their fingers. And what does the subconscious do when control evaporates into thin air? It becomes agitated and surrenders to despair, beginning to whisper things they are ashamed to admit even to themselves. That bitter truth they evade in broad daylight begins to scratch at their souls as the night draws its curtains. Perhaps, yes, perhaps, they didn't want you for who you are, but because you made them feel good about themselves. Now that you have stepped out of that equation, their entire fake world has collapsed. Yet even now, they cannot see it with full consciousness because their minds are split in two, torn between what they wish for and what terrifies them. This division drives them mad in a way they cannot even name. They begin to imagine your life without them. Every laugh you let out, every smile that graces your face, every second you spend without thinking of them burns their insides silently and invisibly, like a fire raging through dry grass. And do you know what the cruelest aspect of all this is? This is not just nostalgia or longing. This is anger, this is fear, this is a sense of guilt they cannot escape. These emotions surface in irrational and arguably dangerous ways. Most people never face this. They run from this discomfort, pretending it doesn't exist. But you, by stepping back, by leaving them in the heart of that void for which they were never prepared, have brought everything to light. Now, something primal is awakening inside them, something that was hiding beneath that thick crust with which they deceived themselves for years. That shadow they silenced and ignored for so long is now screaming at the top of its lungs. I cannot lose them. I cannot let them go. They replay every conversation, every text, every word, and every glance in their heads over and over again. They place themselves on the dissecting table and tear themselves to pieces. They dismantle you into parts, trying to find the breaking point, the one through which they can trap you in their nets once more. And this is the most terrifying side. They will feel compelled to take action, not always consciously, sometimes out of sheer impulse, and sometimes in ways that might terrify them personally. Because the human psyche hates unresolved tension more than anything else. And you have created the greatest possible tension. In Carl Jung's philosophy, as I always say on our inner journey, perhaps you cannot see this yet. You think silence is just stillness. You believe absence is harmless. But absence in the right hands is the most powerful weapon in the world. The most important point here is this. The very second they realized you would no longer run after them is the exact second the mask began to fall. Once that mask drops, everything that was hidden begins to breathe. Everything they suppressed inside themselves, everything they denied, everything they feared, floats to the surface. This is the real danger, because that calm, self-assured, and indifferent person you saw from the outside is no longer able to even recognize themselves. They will flounder to try and solve this riddle, even if understanding is impossible. And you, in the heart of that silence, stand at the center of their complete collapse. But we will not stand here and leave you in confusion, because what happens next is something they themselves cannot predict. They don't even realize it. The abyss of absence. Here we conclude this first part. The silence you created is not empty. It is a massive mirror reflecting everything they ran from. And this reflection is about to speak now. They cannot help but think about this, not because they want to, but because that immense void you left behind refuses to be ignored. This is the bitter truth they hid even from themselves. Absence is far more terrifying than rejection. Rejection has a face, a specific shape, but absence is absolute chaos. It is a barren, white canvas upon which they paint their worst fears with their own hands. Right here, things spiral out of control. They begin to notice every tiny detail. The brief pauses in conversations, the delayed replies, the smiles that no longer belong to them. Every small crack in your attention, every slight withdrawal turns into a hammer blow crashing down on their subconscious. They replay those moments that once seemed trivial, that joke you laughed at without them, that fleeting glance you directed at someone else, that message you didn't reply to immediately. It all spins in their minds time and time again. In the midst of these endless loops, they begin to see patterns and codes born of their own imagination. Their minds search frantically for meaning. Their ego can never tolerate the unknown, and the only thing you have given them is a massive unknown. Here begins that hidden horror. They begin to question themselves. Did they misunderstand you? Did they push you too hard? Did they fail to appreciate your worth? Every suppressed insecurity rises like a ghost to haunt their every thought. Most people do not realize this. The mind does not just feel loss. It goes on a hunting expedition looking for a solution. When it finds no solution, it creates its own. It fabricates scenarios, invents excuses, and devises justifications, just to regain control once more. How does this translate into their actions? It starts with small steps, a vacant gaze toward the horizon, a momentary urge to reach out to you, a cautious curiosity about the details of your life. Then things escalate, obsessive thoughts, fantasies about changing the past, and a sharp regret that tastes like bitterness itself. They feel as though their subconscious has cornered them, because your withdrawal has triggered their deepest primal emotions. They have faced the harsh reality that they can no longer get what they want through force, manipulation, or their fake charm. This is exactly where most people break down psychologically, because the human mind is not programmed to be left alone with its loss of control. Deep down, they begin to battle that unspoken fear. I might lose them forever. This fear does not operate on logic. It works on pure instinct, by the primitive parts of the brain that are much older than logic. Those parts that scream, scratch, manipulate, and demand a result at any cost. This is the unsettling and dangerous truth. Their subconscious begins making plans behind their backs and without their permission. They might convince themselves, I must show them that I care, or I must make them run after me again, or even worse, I must punish them for leaving me. Because when the ego is threatened, morality becomes negotiable. The unraveling. All those polite masks shatter, excuses and justifications melt away. All those contrived social roles vanish. Here, it becomes purely personal. They are wrestling with emotions they can no longer control: desire, jealousy, guilt, and shame. They collide in the center of an unbearable storm. Yet they cannot act rationally, at least not yet. They sway between two worlds. On one hand, that world where they desperately need your attention. On the other hand, the world where they are terrified of their obsession with you. On one side, they burn with longing to reconnect with you. On the other, they are disgusted with themselves for needing you so badly. The painful irony lies here. You did nothing. You simply stopped running after them. By doing nothing, you activated the deepest and most hidden parts of their minds. Those dark parts they tried to suppress for years. Those parts they are ashamed to admit. Those voices that whisper in the dark. I am weak. I am inadequate. I need what I cannot possess. Most people flee from this to the furthest extremes. They try to distract themselves and cover their inner panic with logical excuses. But this has nothing to do with logic whatsoever. This is pure, raw, unfiltered panic, exploding from the subconscious to overflow into real life. And here lies the breaking point. The more you disappear, the larger the chaos grows inside them. They begin to notice things they never cared about before. Your steady posture, how you smile from your heart without them, how your life moves on and flows without any pause. Everything they see becomes a dagger plunging into their chests, and every realization they reach further fuels that fire within them. They have fallen into the trap, cornered between fear and desire, between what they want and what they can bring themselves to admit. Inside that trap, they begin weaving scenarios they would have never imagined before. Fantasies of control, fantasies of reconciliation, fantasies of revenge. Because your withdrawal exposed that naked truth. You are not a soldier at their command. You never were. And this truth is like lethal poison, not to you but to them. Here we leave this suspended tension. They have awakened now, not consciously, but on a level that terrifies them. Their subconscious has betrayed them, and they themselves do not know what they will do next. The storm has brewed, and you are the eye of that storm. They are fracturing, and they haven't even realized it yet. It begins subtly, an unjustified tightness in the chest, a cold wave of fear running through their bodies at unexpected moments. But it grows and spreads. A state of silent panic seeps into every thought, every impulse, and every heartbeat. This is the harsh truth. Your absence is not an empty thing. It is a massive mirror they cannot look away from. The reflection they see in that mirror is, in a single word, terrifying. They see themselves completely naked, defenseless, and inadequate. They fear their addiction and are disgusted by their longings because they hid behind lies for years. They took shelter in the illusion of control, in that false superiority, and those indifferent masks. And you tore those masks away without lifting a finger. The ultimate confrontation. Most people think confrontation requires taking a stand or an action. They are wrong. Absence itself is a confrontation. Silence is a confrontation. Refusing to run after someone is the heaviest type of confrontation. Now, the subconscious awakens roaring. Those secret desires they suppressed, the winds of lies they relied upon, all that pride and denial float to the surface like raging waves crashing against the edge of the cliff. They enter a strange and frightening emotional state. Desire stained with anger, love knotted with fear, and longing embracing guilt. They may find themselves staring at a blank phone screen while their fingers tremble over your name. They know they shouldn't do it, but they cannot stop themselves. In that moment of hesitation, the fracture in the mind grows deeper, because every human mind contains dark corners, hidden fears, unspoken insecurities, and desires lingering in the shadow. When the world begins to spin in a way they cannot control, those dark corners grow, pressing against the walls to break out and explode. They may convince themselves that they are calm, logical, and that the strings are still in their hands, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. The subconscious never lies. It whispers, it pulls, it gnaws from within. Simply by disappearing, you unleash that primal whisper. They create scenarios that feel so real, so vivid, and so overwhelming that they slap their ego. That laugh you let out without them, how you flourished in your life without them crossing your mind for a single second. Every scene they build in their heads is a blow to their pride, a source of pain and a reminder. They cannot force you. They cannot tear away something you withheld from them of your own free will. This is the most dangerous part. Here, patterns of obsession appear. The mind hates a vacuum, and it hates pain in equal measure. The human psyche cannot exist with absence without attributing a meaning to it. If there is no clear meaning, it sits down and invents one. They fabricate reasons, intentions, and justifications, dissecting every moment they lived with the precision of a surgeon, tearing apart every word and every look. And every scenario they build in their minds is a dagger they drive into their own hearts. Those self-interrogations, those thoughts spinning in the head, and those fantasies are actually fear itself, disguised as thoughts beneath the surface. Primal instincts kick in, that dark corner of the brain, much older than morality, logic, and social rules. That part that wants, craves, and reacts. It inevitably begins making plans despite them. You stand at the center of this storm. They may feel compelled to reach you, to test you, to provoke you, or even to punish themselves or punish you. Because when absence collides with the subconscious, free will becomes a strange concept. Desire and fear crush logic. The mind shatters under the weight of what it cannot control, and they cannot rid themselves of this tension. Not entirely, not yet. Even the simplest sign of your independence strikes them like a thunderbolt. Every step you take, everything you share, every tiny trace of your life continuing without them pierces their depths. What is most painful is that all of this happens far from your eyes. They have become trapped in a vortex within themselves, captives in the heart of the psychological storm that you manage simply by taking a step back. The inescapable truth is this. This is not just emotional pain. This is psychological pressure. A pressure that distorts perception, feeds obsession, and magnifies every flaw, every fear, and every insecurity to a massive degree. Worst of all, they themselves do not understand why they cannot stop. Because even though their conscious mind tries to hold onto logic, the steering wheel has already shifted to the subconscious. They have become addicted to that tension you created, to that unknown, and to that silence which is louder than all the words in the world. From the outside, however, it looks as if they are doing nothing, at least for now. The storm grows inside them silently and invisibly, and here we leave them on the brink of this very collapse. Their minds reel on the edge of the abyss, their desires mixed with fear, their longings poisoned by guilt, their obsession grown wild, untamed, and cruel. They are on the verge of breaking, on the verge of tearing apart. When the mind reaches this point, this edge of collapse is either a harbinger of a radical transformation or total destruction. In the midst of this storm and in the heart of this chaos, the only constant is you. That moment has come, the moment they drifted toward step by step without realizing it. Your absence has done its job slowly and silently. Your refusal to run after them destroyed everything they thought they controlled, and there is no mask left. They look into that immense void you opened, and there they see nothing but themselves. They do not see that fake face they presented to the world. They do not see that confident, perfect facade. Instead, they see that raw, miserable, and panicked human being lurking beneath it. That is the terrifying truth. They hate what they see. They are disgusted by that weakness, by that need, and by the fear of loss. They hate that longing that burns their chests like fire, but they cannot turn their faces away. They cannot ignore it, because absence has brought to light things that could never have been revealed through your constant pursuit. Most people never experience this. Most people never face the true self that emerges when the person they desire steps back. Now they are in the heart of a strange paradox. They want you, but they are deeply terrified of their desire for you. They crave that connection, but they are disgusted by the burning intensity of their inner hunger. Here, the subconscious speaks with absolute clarity, whispering, "I need them, but they are no longer mine as they were in the past. I am inadequate, my mask has fallen, I am completely naked." The mind fractures a little more. The safety net they relied upon, that shield of suppression, no longer exists, and what happens next is inevitable. That psychological storm explodes. They may try to reach you, perhaps subtly and stealthily, or perhaps openly and explicitly. But this is no longer a game like before. That old chase is over. This is no longer a simple story they can manipulate as they please, because they now know they lost that comfortable zone of control a long time ago. This is the pure, unfiltered truth that most people evade facing. You were never a soldier at their command. You were never theirs to own. Through your withdrawal and by stopping your pursuit of them, you left them alone with the harshest of mirrors, their subconscious. Every insecurity they buried inside themselves for years, every fear, every secret desire now looks them straight in the eyes without any mercy. They see the mistakes they ignored, the excuses they fabricated, and those moments they bypassed, one by one. That remorse of conscience has now become an unbearable weight. Because the matter is no longer about you anymore. The whole matter is about them. Their ego, their defense mechanisms, and the false world they built, collapsing stone by stone. Herein lies the cruel genius of your silence. You didn't force them to act through manipulation. Rather, you created enlightenment through absence. You cannot force a person to chase themselves from within. No one can manipulate their own mirror with their own hand. To achieve that, one must step back, boundaries must be drawn, and one must possess the courage to stop playing their dirty game. Now they must face themselves. Some will collapse entirely, some will go mad with rage, and others will try to reclaim something they can never possess. But all of them have changed. All of them have opened their eyes to realities they could never have endured before. This is the final, cruel paradox, yet it is incredibly beautiful. You did nothing, and yet everything changed. Because when the chase ends, the real game begins. This game is not about running after someone. This game is about your own reflection. It is about the falling of masks. This game is about a human being confronting themselves, that raw, audacious confrontation. And now, as they look into that great void, they feel this to their very core. They realize the silent, conquering power of someone who refuses to be controlled, refuses to run after anyone, refuses to submit, and refuses to shrink themselves for the sake of another person. Your absence succeeds in doing what words, gestures, or pleas could never achieve. It forces self-realization and painful awareness by sheer power. Not for your sake, nor for theirs, but for the sake of that ancient truth hidden behind fear, desire, and denial. The truth that was waiting for silence in order to speak. For the sake of that ultimate, inescapable end, so that this unforgettable sentence may finally fall from their lips. I wanted them, but they were never someone I could run after, and now, I finally see before me the person I have been running from my entire life. I see myself.